So today we're going to go over just a few announcements. We'll have the discussion and Q&A with the presentation. We're reducing the time frame of the webinars. I was talking to Mark with eExtension, and he said new research supports that a brief format, maybe 20 to 30 minutes is more ideal for webinars. So that's what we're going to try to work toward today. And then there's time for question and answer at the end. And again, if you guys have any questions or you have comments, feel free to use the chat box. Sometimes if you toggle around in Zoom, I'm not sure how your screens look, but you can find that and post comments or answer any questions. So a few announcements that I just wanted to mention. Registration is open for the International Master Gardener Conference that takes place in July in Portland. This is the link to register for it and also see the abstracts, the presentations. There are a lot of really interesting tours, great presentations that focus on plant problems, how to motivate and retain volunteers, edible flowers, pest management. One of them that looks interesting is good and bad gardening tools, which that was a surprise to me, and I thought it'd be something to learn more about, as well as youth programming and many more options. So that would be a good conference, and it's appropriate for both Master Gardener coordinators and Master Gardener volunteers. So that email came out from Gail Langoletto, and I encourage you to send that to Master Gardener volunteers in case you have some that are interested, or attend yourself if you're interested. The second announcement is the Horizon Report for Cooperative Extension was recently released. I think this email came out a couple of days ago, and the link is there in case you want to access it. What I find interesting, I actually learned about the Horizon reports when I was working on my master's degree, and they focus on different components of education. So I looked at some trends for instructional technology, but this report is interesting because it's focused on extension. So you can look at long-term trends, short-term trends, midterm trends, challenges for extension moving forward in the next few years, and what kinds of ways they encourage extension to kind of focus our time and efforts on. So I thought it would be good just to point this out, maybe a good opportunity if you can read the report. I know that many of us work at the end of the year on evaluating what we've done and then putting together a plan of work for next year. And so if you're trying to think about how do I spend my time, what do I focus my efforts on, this might be a good place to start. It can give you some citations that you can use in your reporting and maybe help you become aware of potential trends or ways to focus your time that you can use for reporting or just developing programs. So I encourage you to take a look at that. There are also a few webinars coming up about the Horizon Report. There's one more in October, and there's 3 in November. 2 of them in November talk about extension from the next 2 to 3 years, and the one in December is what's going to be occurring in extension in a year or less. So different opportunities there. And last announcement that I didn't have time to put on here because I just received the email, and Lucy Bradley sent out an email announcement about the National Extension Conference on Volunteerism. That's in Asheville next year, and they are now accepting proposals for both presentations and posters. So I will post that link in the chat box at some point throughout the webinar. But this looks like a good opportunity to submit a proposal for either a presentation or a poster at the National Conference on Volunteerism. So if you have any questions, I'll also post who the contacts are for each of those resources. Okay, so I just wanted to do a quick poll, and if you can use the chat box and let us know what state you're from. Take a few minutes. Hello, welcome. So Maryland, Florida, Iowa. Okay. And North Carolina. All right, well, welcome Esther, Susan, and Lisa. All right, so today our topic is partnering with the Girl Scouts to create a sustainable pollinator garden. This is a project that my colleague Lynn Barber and I worked on, and Lynn Barber is our University of Florida Extension agent for Florida Friendly Landscaping here in Hillsborough County. She and I worked together on different horticulture projects, but we also worked on this one with Girl Scouts and a youth program for the Sustainable Pollinator Garden. So this was a really successful effort, and we thought it'd make a good presentation just because of the results that we had and how we worked with the girls over a long period of time and some of the things that we were able to accomplish. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Lynn Barber, and the two of us will sort of chime in as we go through the presentation. But Lynn, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and if you could pull up your screen.
I am.
Thank you. All right, so I can see your screen, Lynn, on the title slide.
But I don't see where it's giving me the option to share it from the current slide.
Nope. Can you tab through?
Oh, hang on.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So what we'll do is I'll go back and share my screen again, and we'll just go through and talk through the presentation. Luckily, we both have it. Will that work?
That'll work for me. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let's go down to, all right, so Lynn, if you'll stop sharing your screen, then I'll go ahead and share mine again.
All right.
Okay. Okay, so can you all see the title slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Nicole and I worked on this really fun project. We received 2 gardening grants, one from the Florida Department of Transportation and one from Kids Gardening. And both were relatively easy to secure. Have any of you written grants before?
And someone has a phone that you'll need to mute.
Okay, well, if you haven't written a grant before, I do see a yes from Lisa. It's kind of like applying for a job. What you tailor the application to the mission of the entity that actually has that grant that's available. So for Florida Department of Transportation, we linked the 9 principles of the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program, which is the University of Florida program, to stormwater education. And the 9 principles, first and foremost, is right plant, right place, water efficiently, fertilize appropriately, mulch, recycle, controlled yard pests responsibly, reduce stormwater runoff, which involves the stormwater education, attracting wildlife, which is this project, and then also protecting the waterfront. So we felt that this particular project would be great from a community response because people are really into pollinators right now, and certainly everyone appreciates what the Girl Scouts are going through and learning. You can see the did you know, the DYK at the bottom, and I'm assuming that you probably did know that a third of the food that we eat comes from animals that are from animal pollinated plants. So, but for pollinators, our diet would be significantly different than it is today.
Right, and Lynn, I also wanted to mention that the kidsgardening.org was one of the agencies that we received the grant, and that was a national program, correct? And so anyone on the call could apply to them. And if you get the grant and you're accepted, you get all sorts of interesting things that they send you, like kids tools, raised beds, and lots of other materials.
Oh, and we got a lot of books, very interesting books for lesson planning. That's really nice too, and the gloves are really cute also. So from Kids Gardening, which you can just Google or use another internet browser and find Kids Gardening. They just sent us a box of wonderful things. And then we received reimbursement of funding from FDOT. So the biggest expense that we actually incurred was for plant materials, which one might suspect. And the second biggest expense is for the signage for the garden. All right, so our partners, obviously, Girl Scout Troop number 360, and they're in a town called Lutz, which is in northwestern Hillsborough County. So we had Nicole and I, and 2 of the Girl Scout mothers were involved, 2 master gardeners, and then 3 Girl Scouts. So the whole purpose of this project was to help the 3 Girl Scouts achieve a silver award, which has cause and root issues. So what is the purpose for their project? What are the issues which would drive the project? And then what do they hope to learn and achieve as a result of that project? So you can see that that is the garden area that they created, which was adjacent to a perennial garden that we have at our office.
Right, and the Girl Scouts did the research on this. They knew a lot about bees, which I think everyone on the call, you're getting calls from the public and from youth and teachers and families, you know, concerned about bees. But they also learned more about pollinators and how it's important to plant gardens for pollinators and attract them. But they also, as part of the Silver Award, needed to come up with a project that was going to be sustainable. So they identified the cause and the root issue. Pollinator populations are threatened or in some cases declining, different causes for that. And then they put together an application and submitted this as their potential project. And Lynn and I can tell you that if you've ever worked with the Girl Scouts, not every project gets approved. And they really needed to think it through and come up with not only the cause, but the issue, and then how would they sustainably solve this problem. So Lynn and I are wondering, have any of you worked with Girl Scouts on projects? And if you have or you haven't, if you could put your answer in the chat box. So we have some folks that have worked with 4-H, but not very many people that have worked with Girl Scouts and perhaps at a local master gardener level. And then again, yes, but not with extension. So the Girl Scouts are a great opportunity to form a partnership and work with them. As we go through this presentation, we'll give you some other ideas of how we utilize the Scouts and how good of a partnership it was here at Extension. But here are some of our educational methods that Lynn and I worked on.
I think one of the most fun educational methods that, for the most part, the Girl Scouts enjoyed, maybe not 100% on everything, but they helped us do all of the actual planting work. So they helped remove weeds, and they dug the holes for the plants and watered the plants in and did pruning and mulched the area and helped hook up micro irrigation in the area of that garden. So they really worked very hard. And for those of you that have been in Florida, in like August, September, you probably know that it's a little hot and it's a little challenging for girls to pick up 3 cubic foot bags of mulch and haul them and then spread that mulch. So one of the 3 girls said that that was probably her least favorite thing of everything that they did. But they did so much more. They're helping design the signage, the official signage with the Girl Scout logo on it. And they made, with one of those little label makers, signage with the scientific name and the common name of all of the plants in the garden. So that they did a couple of different days. They also were docents for triple workshops that we have 10 months out of the year on a Saturday, which is composting, micro irrigation, and rainwater harvesting. So they were stationed in the pollinator garden. So when people would leave one workshop, they would stop by and ask them questions and tour that garden area. So they've done that 3 times so far and really enjoyed it. In addition to that, we have an event that we call Florida Friendly Landscaping 101, and they created 2 posters with pictures of pollinators and pictures of them and information about pollinators, and worked the crowd at one of our big educational events in Tampa. So that was very nice too. And you can see that we've had more than 1,000 people that have visited our extension office and looked at the gardens. We have a Betty Walker Discovery Garden, which is based on the 9 Florida Friendly Landscaping Principles. And we have a pollinator garden. We have a garden goodies garden, which is a group of school kids, and different kids are involved in that garden on an annual basis. And we have a perennial garden, which is just loaded with butterfly and pollinator plants there too. So
what you're looking
at, go ahead. You can see in the picture.
What you're looking at in the picture are the pollinator theme packs, and these are theme packs that we put together where families that are coming to the extension office can check out the theme packs, and the theme packs are stuffed with things that they can use when they're out in the garden. So we have mini clipboards with paper and crayons and these clear plastic insect and flower sketch plates. So when they're out in the garden, they can take some time to sketch different designs of insects and pollinator plants. Those we found online, very inexpensive, and each theme pack, backpack, has several of these different templates for the kids to choose from. We also bought very inexpensive jeweler's loops that are in each of the backpacks so the kids can look up close at different insects that they find or examine a flower petal. We have books inside of the theme packs if they want to read more about pollinators, and also gardening gloves if they want to help us with a project when we're out in the garden.
So the focus of the project was to provide leadership opportunities for the Girl Scouts that were involved in the project. And as you can see from this list, they've done an extremely large amount of media blitzing. So they've written press releases and other types of articles that we've had published in local area newspapers. We did talk about the labeling of the plants. They did 2 30-minute segments on Your Neighborhood Inspiration Station, which is AM 1110 WTIS, and that's in St. Petersburg, that Nicole and I were involved in that also. So that was a lot of fun. They're involved in social marketing. They post their pictures online. And of course, the display boards, you can see one of them. The other one, you can't quite see what's on the board, but it is for the pollinator garden at that Florida Friendly Landscaping event. And then again at our triple workshop. So they've done a really nice job.
And part of this Silver Award project is, we didn't just want the girls to come out and plant a garden or plant a pollinator garden and that's the end of it. We really did try to focus on what can the girls learn from this project that they can use immediately or even draw upon later in life as they're getting job experience or going through high school or volunteering for another organization. So we focused on what skills could they learn. We focused on professionalism. Anything that Lynn and I asked them to do, they were able to do, and they surprised us and often exceeded our expectations. And, we just encouraged them to write articles, think about how do we structure a press release, log their schedule, manage their time, talk to adults, interact with the public. And they also surprised us by posting on social media and keeping people informed of their project.
I was really impressed by one of the 3 girls at a triple workshop where a young girl came up to one of the Girl Scouts and said that she had previously been a Girl Scout, but that her mother really didn't think that she was getting enough out of it and wasn't crazy about transporting her to the meetings and different events. So the Girl Scout from Troop 360 went up to the mother after the workshop, and I was within listening distance and just had a really nice, positive conversation with her about the benefits of being a Girl Scout and encouraging the mother to allow her daughter to at least consider re-entering the realm of the Girl Scouts. So she was very polite and tactful, and I did tell her afterwards that I was quite impressed with the mature way that she handled that conversation.
And
so
some of our, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So some of the results for this project were not only did they establish a garden for visitors that's here for people to come and look at, get their own ideas for their own landscapes. We created the interactive materials for the youth. So if you can come up with a theme or something that interests you or is applicable to your part of the country, think about, you know, the backpacks that can be checked out. We have them available at our reception desk, and parents and families can get those and use them while they're here. Maybe people that have, you know, more of a wildlife perspective could have animal-themed backpacks, or looking at birds or butterflies or something like that. We linked the girls up with the mentors. Lynn mentioned early on that we thought it would be very important that they be able to work with some of our extension faculty and experienced Master Gardener volunteers. And I would say the Master Gardener volunteers really got a lot out of the project too, because they were able to share their experience and you know, expertise with the girls, and the girls really learned a lot from them. Throughout the project, we had many opportunities to reflect on what they were working on. And I think when you're teaching people in general, reflection is one of those key things that help you remember, like, what did I learn? What do I still need to learn? Or how can I apply this in the future? And so we asked the girls to keep a journal of their progress, and we showed you a piece of that in the last slide. And then also to communicate with us by email. We checked in with each other a lot, making sure that we were understanding of the different things that needed to be completed, the components, the time frames. And we also asked the girls to create an online photo gallery. So throughout the course of the project, which has occurred over several months, the girls took pictures and documented the progress of their project. And pollinators in general, we all know that they're important to us. And Lynn mentioned that 1 out of every 3 bites of food can be attributed to an animal pollinated plant. And in the U.S., the economic impact from pollinators is about $20 billion per year. So it's a really good time to start talking about pollinators. We sort of seized on how trendy it is. And we're very excited that we have this sustainable garden here that can be used to teach people, while also talking about stormwater education and Florida-friendly landscaping principles.
And I think for the two of us, Nicole, if I can speak for you, we had a great experience when we went to a native nursery a ways from our office that we had never been to before, and had so much fun filling up the county van with plants and pollinator boxes that we have committed to going in one of our cars, or maybe we should each drive, because we found so many plants that were so wonderful that we want to put a few more at work, but we would like to have even more plants at home. Not that we don't have enough already.
Yeah, there's always room for one more plant, right?
One more?
One more.
All right, so for results, it was really fun working with the Girl Scouts, and it saved us time. We would give them instructions on what needed to be done, show them how to do it, and they would do it. So it saved us time in performing all those tasks on our own. And it did feel good. It felt good to them to have someone giving them direction, and it felt good to us being able to help the Girl Scouts understand more about gardening and pollinators and the importance of them.
Around the butterfly garden, it's good.
Not to mention that the girls were extremely capable. Like we said, everything we asked them to do, they were able to accomplish. I don't think that they'd really published an article before, but as a result of this project, they do have their names on articles that were published in local community association newsletters and the newspaper, so that was really nice. And then Lynn and I just, encourage folks to reach out to your local Girl Scouts, find some troops that perhaps would be interested in working on a project. Identify a need in your office. This was a need that already existed for us. We were already thinking about doing this. So working with the Girl Scouts helped to get that help to make that possible. And think outside the box. You know, ask the girls to work on some of those leadership skills and write press releases, write articles, be a docent, talk to adults, talk to the public.
There were a couple of challenges along the way. There was a separate application that had to be completed for the Silver Award, and it was quite lengthy. Ongoing communication can be a challenge, but it also can make life significantly easier. And we had very good communication channels that were open all the time with both the parents and the Girl Scouts, so that helped. We did start out with meeting with them initially, and Nicole, you met even before I became involved in this project, and then we met on an ongoing basis. So we did have a lot of additional communications, and the project did involve more than 50 hours of commitment by the Girl Scouts in working with us to create the garden. And we even worked on planning additional events with them while we were at statewide conferences. So the picture that you can see on the right that Nicole took is one of the pollinator boxes that we purchased. And we have 5, 2 in the perennial garden, 2 in the Betty Walker Discovery Garden, and 1 in the, or maybe 2 in the pollinator garden, I guess.
Yes,
so we're buying more of these for our homes.
And these pollinator boxes work. I don't know if any of you have these at your extension offices and your demonstration gardens. If you do, you can do a quick, yes, we've got them in the chat box. But I was just filming one this morning because it had 3 wasps flying around it and, you know, making their little tubes so they could lay their eggs and the larvae would hatch out of that. So it's pretty interesting to see that they actually do work, and there's a whole ecosystem happening right in these little bee boxes. And I just want to joke that with the application for the Silver Award, I can say that the Silver Award application was almost as lengthy as a grant application. So make sure that you have time to do that. But one of the other things that we did was we asked the girls to read through the initial grants that we received. We used some of those grant components in the Silver Award application. And then the girls will also be responsible for helping Lynn and I write the final report on deliverables for our grant.
Another really cool thing about creating a pollinator garden is you think about landscape management techniques and turf grass and fertilizer and mowing and edging and pesticides and insecticides and all that kind of stuff. So by converting a space from turf grass into something like a pollinator garden, you're decreasing all of those inputs that you're required to make. So really, over time, you're going to end up saving yourself significant time, water, and money. So, and you're going to make the environment much more friendly for pollinators. So we're recommending that you make pollinators more newsworthy, and we've seen a lot of things about their decline, and Nicole and I are committed to at least turn that around at our extension office and in our own personal landscapes. So you may well want to duplicate our efforts, and we'd be more than happy to share what information we've compiled with all of you so that you could have as much fun and success as we've had on this project. So it's a great opportunity to partner with Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or Boys and Girls Clubs or any other youth organization. It helps inspire leadership in them. It certainly makes us feel better when we walk away at the end of the day and see what they've learned and what they were able to accomplish.
So real quick, these are some of the plants that we selected, and I know that this is a national discussion, so you would be able to choose your own pollinator plants that would work for your particular region or state. But we did encourage the use of native plants, and we tried to pick native plants or other pollinator plants that perhaps the public wasn't as familiar with. So we really used it as a good learning opportunity. And of course, as we showed in the earlier slide, everything was labeled with common and botanical names so people could learn what plants they were. And then we also provided them with supply information of local nurseries, native plant nurseries, where these plants would be available. Here are some of the other plants that we included. African blue basil is one that we grow here in Florida, and I'm thinking that it would probably do well in the rest of the country too as an annual. I can't say enough about that plant. Every time we go out into the garden, it's covered in all different kinds of pollinators, be it butterflies, bees, flies, wasps, even beetles. So this is a really amazing plant. If you can get a hold of that and put it in your pollinator garden, you'll be able to see a different pollinator nearly every day.
It is an amazing plant, and the Girl Scouts were even taking cuttings of that African blue basil and giving it to people that were attending our workshops. So then someone would walk in with a bouquet of the blue basil, and someone else would say, "What's that I smell? It smells like basil." And we'd say, "It is basil." So then they would go out and get some cuttings too, so that they could take the cuttings home and then propagate them so they could have the plant too. And Nicole, I think you're talking about doing that.
Absolutely. I actually have a few that I'm trying to get started at home, just because I've been so impressed. I knew about African blue basil. I love that plant, but I just had no idea what a magnet it is for the pollinators.
So some other things you should oh, go ahead.
Oh, just some other considerations. You always want to have an area of bare soil, because we know a lot of our pollinators will use mud to kind of, pack that into different areas, or if, for example, with our bee boxes, they use it to pack the mud in, and then they lay their eggs, and the larvae are inside of that. So having some bare soil and a water source so that they can use that for their nesting materials is very important. We also emphasize using a variety of plants. Sometimes folks get hung up on having butterfly plants, our typical hosted nectar plants, but we also emphasize that even plants with very tiny, tiny flowers, even non-colorful flowers, like just white flowers, are excellent for different kinds of pollinators. So variety is very important, and different bloom periods, things that are staggered, plants that bloom over a long period of time, even plants that bloom in winter or early spring are essential in a pollinator garden.
So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them now, or type them in the chat box.
Okay, well, hearing no questions, we will post the link of this recording online, and I'll send out an announcement to let you know where that is. We also have a webinar next month where we're going to be talking about risk management with Master Gardener volunteer programs, and our speaker will be Dr. Norma Samuel. I also encourage you to visit some of those links that we talked about earlier, and I will go ahead and post those in the chat box before we conclude the webinar. I also want to thank everyone for being on the call today. I hope that you were able to use some of this information, or that you'll be able to implement a similar project. Working with the Girl Scouts was just a really enjoyable thing for Lynn and I. We got a lot out of it. The girls learned quite a bit. It was great to work one-on-one with 3 girls to complete this project. And this was the first time we've worked with the Girl Scouts in our extension office on something like this, besides just providing, workshops for badges and things. And so it kind of is an untapped resource for extension that has the potential for significant outcomes.
And it was a significantly fun adventure.
And I see from Lisa and Anne, both of them are looking forward to sharing this idea or implementing this in their own programs. So I'm glad to hear that. All right, well, thank you all. We appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.